Well, I've been working on prepping this case. Scraped off a lot of the heavy part of the gasket material. I'm going to clean that up in a bit. But one of the problems I'm having is I've got to get this part of the oil pump housing off of this old case. This is the case with the big crack in it. And I'm having a heck of a time getting these screws out. I was able to find a bit that I had, a Phillips bit that really fits that and engages well. And even with a wrench on it to give me extra leverage, I can't budge these. I don't know why they're so tight. I don't know whether or not somebody put a really strong Loctite on there before they put these screws in or what. But it's kind of weird because there's no evidence of these threads on this new housing that I got in. Don't look like they have any remnants of any thread lock on them, so I don't know. I actually heated this with a torch and ended up with a MAP gas torch, got it pretty hot so that all this oil started cooking off and smoking like crazy. I mean, I got the thing pretty darn hot. Cooled it down, tried mechanically shocking it some, you know, and then tried putting more torque on it, let it cool down, come back later, try again. Still not having any luck. So I think at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and rig up a way for me to actually use an impact driver on this. Alright, it ain't pretty, but it's going to let me use my impact driver on this. Got a couple of adapters here to get up to the size I need. We'll see. I figure this is going to do one of three things. It's either going to break it free and the screws are going to zip out in a second, or the screws are going to almost instantly strip, or the screws are going to snap, or the bit is going to snap. Let's see. Put it on the floor and got my foot on it. Hey, there we go. Love it when it works like that. This one's a little more stripped because it was the one I was trying before I tried applying any heat and before I had a really good sized screwdriver. Oops. Hold on. Well, unfortunately I had the opposite effect with this one. It slipped instead of unscrewing, and then I ground the crap out of it, so really stripped it. So I'm gonna, before it's completely ground up, I'm gonna try the torch on that one and heat that one up like I did the other one and try one more time. Well, I should have heated this up like I did the other one before I even tried to take it out, because I completely ground it out now with that bit, so I can't grab onto it if I wanted to. What's worse is I've ruined the screw. And the thing is, that's going to be a metric screw. It's going to be what they call these stove bolts, but basically it's a countersunk screw. And I just don't think I'm going to find that at my local hardware store, which means I'm going to have to wait for a stupid part order just for these screws, or one of them anyways. And I did heat the hell out of it just now, and the way I know that it would have worked is because I actually was able to watch it rotate tighter a tiny bit, because the bit actually was able to grab in that direction. And, you know, sometimes when it strips it out, it doesn't strip it out in the other direction. But anyways, so now no choice. I'm gonna have to carefully drill out that head. I'm not gonna have to worry about removing the remains of the screw from this case because I'm not reusing this case, but I'll drill it out. Alright, so I found a drill bit, largest drill bit I have, that still fits in this hole on this side, and I'm going to use that to drill out this head. I already started a little bit, but I'll put the camera down and finish. I had a little trouble with the piece started to work hard, and so what I did was I changed to a smaller size drill bit, drilled a pilot hole part way down, and then went back to my other original size drill bit and was able to complete the job. Okay, upon removing the oil pump assembly, I see there's a couple of little O-rings right here. Obviously want to keep track of those and not lose those. And then the other thing is now I've got metal filings all over this, so I'm obviously going to want to clean this really good because you certainly don't want metal filings sitting in your oil pump. Now I'm going to remove this little arm with this wheel on it, spring. This is basically, this rides on that sector gear on the end of the shifting drum, and it's basically what gives you a positive stop to each position for each gear and neutral. So that's just a matter of taking this one bolt out. Alright, so I'm going to take note of how this is attached. This basically hooks under that spring right there, and then the spring, well, it just sits in that position there. Pretty straightforward. Okay, this old crankcase half is completely stripped. There's nothing left for me to take off of here, and well, except for these. I could take these studs off, but the guy who sold me the replacement crankcase half that I'm going to use included these, so I'm not even going to have to bother with taking these out. So this basically goes in the scrap pile. Alright, I took them off anyways. I don't know, just in case I need them. Also because they're steel and this should be all aluminum, so I'm going to throw this in the aluminum scrap pile. Actually, except for that. But anyways, taking those out. Vice grips. Being careful not to mar up the threads, obviously, so I grabbed it down here where this area is and was able to get them out pretty easily. Okay, I've cleaned up the gasket mating surface on this side, and I've got most of this side done, except I've got to get my really small attachment on my soft brush here on my Dremel tool to get in really close around these two pins, these locating pins. And then I'm going to give it a good wash to get any gasket debris that went flying in there out, and any other debris that may be in there out of the all the little cavities and everything. Alright, I just finished cleaning it up and used compressed air to make sure I get all the water out of the bearings and clean the case, dry the case. And I'm going to use the bearings that were already in this case when I got it. These are from the 2007. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this bearing feels good, and this bearing also feels good, as opposed to this bearing which came out of my 03. When I turn it, I can feel a spot where it's hanging up, which means there is either damage to that bearing or there's still some small piece of metal debris or something that's stuck in that race. So I don't want to use that bearing. This bearing also came out of the 03, and this one actually feels okay, but since this one's okay, I'm going to just use the one from the 07. And case looks pretty good. Got one bad imperfection. Where is it? Oh, it's on this side, right here. I don't know if you can actually see that, but that's a pretty good little divot right there, a little chunk taken out. So that's just a lesson in how not to separate the cases. Not sure what somebody was doing here, but you can also see there's these big pock marks right here that indicate to me that somebody was banging on that, or was banging on something and hit that. I don't know what happened there, but that's another reason why I'm going to definitely use a gasket sealant product with the gasket when I put this back together. And then also there's this weird deal here with this being all chewed up. I'm not sure what the heck was going on here, but this hole isn't even perfectly round any longer, so I'm going to have to check and see if the bolt's going to fit through there okay, and if it's not, I might have to ream that out or just dress that a little bit with a drill bit. So it looks like somebody was maybe pounding on this too, and they were pounding on it so hard that they deformed this hole. So go figure, who knows. Here's the super cheap gasket set I got off of eBay. I mean, you talk about your low budget gasket sets. This is, this actually came to me from an eBay seller in Israel, of all places. But obviously it's a product of Korea. It says right here, what's it say? Special chemical and mixture have been treated to the gasket materials in order to withstand high pressure and oil resistance. Apply of any engine something / gum or shellac compound are not required. Use material. So basically what they tried to say in English there is they're claiming that these gaskets have been treated with a special product, which if you feel them, it actually feels like they treated it with wax. Yeah, so these gaskets, I noticed also, they're not cut very cleanly. But hey, you know what? I mean, this whole gasket set was like $15, I think, with shipping. With this head gasket, you get a thick piece of cardboard sandwiched with a little piece of metal ring in there. Yikes. And then this was in there. Which beats the hell out of me what that is. That is some kind of funky seal. Oh, you know, I bet you this is. Bet you this is the exhaust pipe gasket. Well, that's my guess right now. But I'm thinking this is the packing to go where the exhaust pipe seals up to the head. Oh well. So first I dry fit the gasket to see how it fits. And, well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. The very cheap gasket does not fit. Fits actually pretty poorly. You can see that if I shift this over a little bit, I can get that hole to line up, but then that causes this to want to bunch up over here, and so then that hole is off, and then it's bunching up even more over here. That's way off. If I let it relax and sit kind of like down where it wants to sit, then this hole is way off, and this hole is way off, and this hole is way off. And they didn't even bother making this gasket like the original one where it actually went around this hole. They just kind of like let it cover this one part here and left that just to be uncovered. So even that one there is kind of just barely on. So I'm going to have to try and trim out these. Let's see, these three right here, I'm going to have to trim them out a little bit to see if I can save this gasket. Otherwise, I'm going to have to buy another damn gasket set. Oh well, I guess that's what I get for buying the cheapest aftermarket thing I could find. This is the other part of the label for this gasket kit. It just says Max on it with some Asian writing, and then it says model XR100 stamped in there, and over here it says gasket. But this was like, I think, $15 for the set, including shipping, and it came all the way from Israel. So I mean, you can imagine this guy's cost on this gasket kit was probably about $4 US, if that. So just a word of warning: if you see this cheap set out there on eBay, run away. I decided I'm not going to use this gasket at all, because the problem is that only 2 bolts actually go into that crankcase side, this side of the crankcase, and sandwich it together. And then later, when you install this cover, the long bolts go through all these holes and are supposed to engage the other side of the crankcase. So basically it's sandwiching the right hand side of the crankcase between this right hand crankcase cover and the left hand side of the crankcase. So the problem is that if those holes aren't all perfectly lined up to begin with, then you're going to have trouble getting the bolts to go in later. And if you try and just force them, you're going to get little bits of gasket material that get caught in the threads. You're going to have trouble torquing this up properly. So I'm going to have to get a new one of these gaskets and just can this one. So now I'm trying to determine whether or not I need a whole gasket kit again, or can I just buy this gasket. I'm going to obviously check pricing and make a determination after that on what I'm going to end up doing. The other factor is I wanted to see how well this gasket that came with the kit fit. This one's a little better. I might be able to make this one work, but it's also not as good as it should be. So really it's going to be a question of cost. If it's going to be just more cost effective to just get a whole nother kit, then I'm going to do that. You know, we'll see. And I guess while I'm at it, I'll order that screw that I snapped or stripped out for the oil pump. Alright, until next time.